enlightened us to a great detail. So, fire away. Yeah.
My name is Javed, and I'm not from any publication. I just happened to read your advertisement in Times of India, and I thought I'll spend a good afternoon here. In any case, my question is directed to Mr. Dr. Zakir Naik. But before that, I want to clarify a point said by Mr. Sahani, who said that Taslima has been quoted wrongly. In any case, if you could see the 31st January 94 Time magazine issue reported by Mr. Fazan Ahmed, there she has said that the sun revolves around the earth. Okay, and I mean, how can we believe such unscientific thing if it is in the Quran? And secondly, she has said, she has blamed Islam for the high rate of female infanticide in Bangladesh. I mean, I think these are, is it in the Quran? Can you clarify?
Brother Javed has posed me two questions. It depends upon the chairperson whether he allows me to answer both or not. I will answer the...
He has the beginner's luck, so he has asked two questions.
Oh,
in future, it won't be permitted. Only one question.
Oh, the first question he said was in the Time magazine, which happens to be one of the most authentic magazine in the world, one of the most authentic magazine. I do agree it was reported on the 31st of January that she said that Quran mentions that the sun revolves around the earth. And if we believe in such teachings, how can we progress? I do agree with the second statement. If we believe in such statements, how will we progress? But regarding the first part of the allegation, that the Quran mentions that the sun revolves around the earth, I want proof. Qul hatu burhanakum. Let us produce a proof. Where does the Quran say that? What she is referring to, brother, is mainly a verse in the Quran, in Surah Al-Anbiya, chapter number 21, verse number 33, which says, هُوَ الَّذِي خَلَقَ اللَّيْلَ وَالنَّهَارَ وَالشَّمْسَ وَالْقَمَرَ كُلٌّ فِي فَلَكٍ يَسْبَحُونَ. That it is Allah who has created the night and the day, the sun and the moon, each one traveling in its orbit. The same thing is repeated in Surah Yasin, chapter number 36, verse number 40. كُلٌّ فِي فَلَكٍ يَسْبَحُونَ. Each one traveling in orbit with its own motion. The Quran does not say that the sun revolves around the earth. The Quran says the sun and the moon, each one traveling in its own orbit. The Arabic word used is yasbaha, coming from the root word sabaha, describing the motion of a moving body. If you say a man is doing sabaha on the floor, it means he is not standing. It means he is walking or running. If you say a man is doing sabaha in water, it does not mean he's floating. It means he's swimming. Same way, if you use the word sabaha for a heavenly body, it means rotating about its own axis. So the Quran mentions the sun and the moon rotate, they travel in a motion that is revolve, and they rotate about its own axis. Now again, this verse had put me a little bit doubts, because I had passed my SSC, I had passed my ICSE, sorry, in 1982 from St. Peter's School. And there in geography I learned that the sun did not rotate. The sun revolved, fine, but it was stationary. It did not rotate about its axis. And the Quran mentioned that the sun rotates about its axis. So I was a bit worried. And then I had to do a little bit of research. And then I came to know that according to the recent advances in science and astronomy, we come to know that even the sun rotates about its axis. And to prove it, you can take equipment in the laboratory, and since you can't look at the sun directly, the image of the sun can be put on a tabletop, and the sun has got certain holes, like black spots. And that black spots take about 25 days to rotate completely. So in short, the sun takes about 25 days to rotate. So the Quran is not backward, it is more up to date. I want to ask Taslima Nasreen that who could have written this 1400 years ago, that the sun and the moon, وَالشَّمْسَ وَالْقَمَرَ كُلٌّ فِي فَلَكٍ يَسْبَحُونَ, that the sun and the moon, each one travel in its own orbit, means revolving and rotating. Ask her. The Quran does not mention at all that the sun rotates or revolves around the earth. That's a misinterpretation. Since the chairman has given me permission, regarding the second part of the question, and she has alleged that it is because of Islam that there is such a high rate of infanticide, female infanticide in Bangladesh. She alleged that. I want her to tell me, quote me one verse of the Quran which says that you should kill female children. In fact, according to the BBC report, in the program assignment, the title of that small clipping was Let Her Die. And a British reporter, Emily Beckenin, she came from America and she did a survey on female infanticides, and India happens to have the maximum number. And according to her, every day, more than 3,000 fetuses are being aborted on being identified that they are females. 3,000 fetuses in our mother country. And if you multiply this by 365, more than 1 million fetuses on being recognized that they are female are being aborted. Why don't you read it in the headlines in our papers? Let the papers give it on the front page every day until this female infanticide is stopped. And according to the Tamil Nadu government report, out of the live births of female children, out of 10, 4 are put to death. 4 are put to death. It had to be a Britisher to come and tell us Indians what's the rate of female infanticide in our country. Now coming to the point, what does Quran speak about female infanticide? She cannot quote any verse. I challenge her to quote any verse from the Quran which says female children should be put to death. In fact, if you read Surah Thowheedh, see, I'm going with quotation. So Nasreen Nasreen only says Quran says that, Quran says this. How can a layman who has not read the Quran, or even if he has read the Quran, where will he find which verse says this, what he's saying? So you have to take it for granted. Give benefit of doubt that the Quran does say that the sun rotates around the earth, or you have to agree that it believes in female infanticide. If you read the Quran in Surah Thowheedh, chapter number 81, verse number 8 and 9, it says that when the female child, when she's buried alive, and when she cries out, for what crime has she been killed? On the day of judgment, she'll cry out, for what crime she has been killed? So female infanticide has been completely forbidden in Islam. In fact, all sorts of female infanticides and killing of children has been prohibited. It's mentioned in Quran, in Surah Al-Isra, chapter number 17, verse number 31, as well as in Surah Anam, chapter number 6, verse number 1. It says, kill not your children for want of sustenance. It is Allah who will provide you and your children for sustenance. In fact, Quran rebukes the thought of a person rejoicing on the birth of a male child and his face being sad on the birth of a female child. It's mentioned in Surah Nahl, chapter number 16, verse number 58 and 59. Hope that answers the question, brother.
Father Pereira wants to say something on this particular issue.
I just want to make a general, I think is important at this stage. You often hear people say, oh, the Quran says this, which is an obscurantist thing. Oh, Hinduism says that, which is against progress. Oh, you can prove these things from the Bible and so on. Be very careful, firstly, when you hear things. Often these are vague statements made, as Dr. Naik has pointed very clearly, which have no reference at all. That's the first thing. Secondly, often religious scriptures are used by politicians and are used by obscurantists to support their own prejudices. Classic instance of racism and the Bible. You know that a lot of Western Christianity through the centuries has been racist, and they have used the Bible to defend it. It's absolutely false, but here it is politics which comes to use religion for its own purposes. Remember what I said at the beginning. Every religion has a liberative element which can emancipate you, but can also oppress you, depending on how these things have been twisted. So I make this general comment because often you hear statements like this, and then they will blame, okay, Muslims, see, Muslims, what else? Or Christians, of course, Christians, or Hindus like this, or Sikhs, whatever. Be very careful, because this is the typical kind of prejudice, actually, which only, as it were, creates turbulence and does not help to clear any doubts.
More questions? Yeah, please.
Ista Settlebat from Communalism Combat, Dr. Zaki Nayak. Wanted to ask him whether he considers the attack on Dr. Bedar for saying that Hindus are not kafirs but murtads by, he was threatened with his life. Was that a fundamentalist attack on his life and freedom of expression or not?
Please could you repeat the question? Please could you repeat the question? Dr. Veda.
Dr. Bedar.
Dr.
Dr.
Bedar.
Bedar of the Khudabaksh Library was threatened with his life. His freedom of expression curved when he said that Hindus are not kafirs but murtad.
Sister has posed the question that the person, Mr. Bedar, who said that Hindus are not kafirs and they are murtads. Therefore, is it right that the fundamentalist, they threatened his life? Is that a curb of freedom of expression or not? And life. Again, 2-3 questions. Regarding the first part,